The NFL's franchise tag window opening today. Davante Adams, one of those guys likely to get that tag over the next couple of weeks before the March 8th deadline. If the Packers don't tag him, he would become a free agent. Other big names to track here as the tag window opens. You got J.C. Jackson, the cornerback with the New England Patriots. Mike Williams, wide receiver for the Chargers. Mike Gesicki, the tight end for the Miami Dolphins. Jesse Bates for the runner-up Cincinnati Bengals as well. All right, let's bring in our quarterbacks, Brady Quinn and Danny Kanell. Brady, the Packers, they have to tag Davante Adams, right? I mean, would it make sense for them not to?
No, it wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, how could you potentially let maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL go into free agency and not at least get something back in return? So at a minimum, they're going to tag him. I think it really comes down to at what point do they tag him? How does that decision on when to tag him coincide with Aaron Rodgers' decision, which we could get some sort of announcement as to what he's going to do at some point later on today. But more important than that, they're in a cap nightmare right now. So they really need to put him under the franchise tag and just buy time to negotiate a longer-term deal. He's a talented player. He's got a lot of good football left in him. So whether it's for Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love, or even to try to get as many assets back as possible for him, if you were to trade him, you need to get him under a long-term deal. So that's really the goal of all of this, is trying to extend that window to negotiate, get him under that long-term contract, and make sure he's potentially locked down as a Packer, or at least a very much tradable asset for you in the event that he says, hey, I don't want to play with you anymore. I want to go where Aaron Rodgers wants to go, knowing that he is one of the key pieces that Aaron Rodgers wants on his team if he is indeed going to come back and play for the Packers or any other team for that matter.
Yeah, full disclosure, our producer Jack a week or two ago was like most likely candidates to be to have the franchise tag placed on them. And we didn't even hit on Davante Adams because it was just assumed that was an automatic. I mean, it just feels like that's what has to happen with the Packers. They cannot let him reach free agency, as Brady just said. And I totally agree on all your points here, too. I think, and we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers in just a couple minutes, I think a lot of this depends on what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. And if Aaron Rodgers is leaving, that probably even makes it more sense to get the tag and try to trade him to try to get the maximum return. If you're not going to get the player, you want at least to get something in return for him, and he'd be an incredible trade asset. So I think all eyes are on Aaron Rodgers to see what happens as far as the timing of when the tag is placed on Davante Adams. But I think this is an automatic. I think you look around, and Aaron Rodgers, I think now it's kind of the clock is ticking. He said he wants to make this decision quick. He doesn't want this to, go on an entire offseason like last year's drama-filled offseason. So now it kind of moves to all eyes on Aaron Rodgers. And I think Davante Adams is one who's probably hoping that it happens sooner rather than later so he can know what his future looks like.
The last thing I'll just say, too, in order to create salary cap space, they've got to agree to a long-term deal so they can lessen that cap hit going into 2022. If they leave him under the franchise tag, that is a big number to absorb at the wide receiver position, again, given the cap constraints for this year. So that's another goal, too. It's not just about Aaron Rodgers. It's also about the cap situation that the Packers are in right now and trying to figure out a way of getting under that number, whether Aaron Rodgers is a part of it or not.
But it's mostly about Aaron Rodgers, right? And as we wait for him to decide what he wants to do, we just try to read into his social media posts, right? The latest one just says, gratitude is wine for the soul. Go on, get drunk. So he's feeling gratitude. Danny, what are we feeling by reading that?
Oh, man. I mean, it's like you're reading a Don Brown novel, trying to figure out these different clues that Aaron Rodgers is leaving behind. But remember, Brady and I were on talking about Aaron Rodgers after the honors, the NFL Honors Awards, and it felt different. It felt like he was kind of saying goodbye to Green Bay and putting that part of his career behind him. So I get it. Like, I think it does. This is pretty weird. It is like he's posting all these pictures with his teammates and he's thanking very specifically people that are part of the Packers organization. So I think it's like, I get it's where we are. We watch what players, if they're following their team, if they're deleting posts, but it's 2022. And I know Aaron Rodgers is an older player in the NFL, but he's still, a part of this social media world where you can kind of put out messages and you can use it as leverage and you can hint toward where you want to be. And I also think Aaron probably likes some of the conversation. He's very coy. I think he likes kind of toying with the media that has treated him really like garbage throughout this year with the COVID-19 stuff that went on. So I think he likes toying a little bit with people as well. Guys, even guys like us, like speculating about what he's going to do. But I do think that it does feel like Aaron Rodgers is saying goodbye to Green Bay.
I think that and the speech really from the NFL honors, it almost made it sound like he might even be retiring at this point. So it's hard to really read into what he's put out there. I think one of the things, though, that he may be doing is just getting out ahead of all of it and trying to get out ahead of the media. As Danny had mentioned, knowing how they've treated him this year and really probably throughout the course of his career, talking about his personal life and all those sorts of things. So, him hinting at things is going to be hard for anyone to read into. I'm not even going to try to do that. But I do know this. If you look at those posts, if you do try to see who is a part of it, Davante Adams and Randall Cobb, they're in a number of those posts. And those are two key components to who he wants to play with moving forward. Now, the first key component, the Packers already hired. And that's Tom Clements back as their quarterback coach, someone who was with him for a long portion of his career with the Green Bay Packers when he first got there initially, helped them to win a Super Bowl and have a ton of success early on. And now he's back. And I think that's in large part not only due to the fact that Tom Clements is a great coach, but it's because that's what Aaron Rodgers wants. And so it's why we opened up talking about Davante Adams and the franchise tag and how that relates here, but also Randall Cobb, who was one of those key pieces that the organization brought back because that's what Aaron Rodgers wanted. So it's not just about the posts, it's kind of about who's in them. And I think how this is sorting itself out, and really if Aaron Rodgers does come back, how they work out a deal for Davante Adams, but also Randall Cobb, who shows up a number of times and he's got a strong bond and friendship with and wants back on this team for another year, potentially, though, under a much lesser deal, again, for cap considerations.
Now that he's single, maybe we can find him a nice Green Bay girl to date. Maybe that'll keep him in the Green Bay area for a little bit longer. Packers not the only team with major quarterback question marks. Let's run through a few, beginning with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who moved to the post-Big Ben era. General Manager Kevin Colbert saying, if we started the season today, Mason Rudolph would be our starter. He's 5-4-1 as a starter. We're excited to see what's next for Mason. Brady, any chance Steelers fans can be excited about that?
I don't think you can when you compare him to the rest of the division. I mean, the reality is they've got a pretty good roster in Pittsburgh. And if that's what you're going to be bringing out there every Sunday, and you're facing Cleveland and Baltimore and Cincinnati twice a year, tell me which team's got the best quarterback in every one of those matchups. It's not Pittsburgh. I mean, Baker Mayfield, you can say what he wants. He was playing banged up last season. He's won the Offensive Rookie of the Year before. He's played some really good football and has taken his team to the playoffs before. I think Baker's definitely a better option. Lamar Jackson, I don't need to say anything more. He's already won the MVP, is a better quarterback. Joe Burrow just took his team to the Super Bowl. So if that's what you're lining up with, I think you're already behind the eight ball. And if that's what Kevin Colbert wants to do, so be it. But the reality is this team needs to look for a quarterback who's already under contract, one of the talented veterans we keep talking about throughout this offseason, to bring on their roster because it's an attractive place to go play. And I think we've seen them too. I'll just throw this out there. Stand behind Ben Roethlisberger dealing with some off-the-field issues. I think given what Deshaun Watson's going through right now, I don't think that's necessarily outside the realm of possibility because how they stood by Ben Roethlisberger through all that, other players who have had issues off the field. And I think depending on how things clear up with Deshaun Watson, this maybe looks like a more desirable place that he'd want to go play and have a chance of having success. So I just have a hard time believing this is what they're going to roll with week one. It's the offseason. We got plenty of time left. If they don't go that direction with a veteran QB, it's got to be in the draft class, Danny Kanell.
And Danny, what about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I mean, what kind of splash could they make to replace the GOAT, Tom Brady, who, as of now, is retired?
Yeah, I know that's a lot of speculation surrounding his future. I think whatever the case is, I don't think it's in Tampa Bay, but I'm not sold on Tom Brady totally retiring just yet. But as far as the Bucs' future looks like, they selected Kyle Trask last year. I don't think he's the franchise quarterback that you want to follow up Tom Brady with. Blaine Gabbert, Bruce Arians has raved about him and his development as kind of an extra pair of eyes for Tom Brady and giving him a ton of credit. I watched him warm up when I was up in New England at Brady's return to New England, and I kept looking at Gabbert being like, man, you can see why he was selected so high in the draft and given up a lot of opportunities. I think he would probably lean to get the start ahead of Kyle Trask, but I don't think that's the answer either. I do think this is one where it gets really interesting because Russell Wilson, would he go follow in the steps of a legend with his ego? Because I do think you kind of have to check it at the door and be like, all right. And then that bar has been set so high by the GOAT that your expectation is to come in there and win a Super Bowl. So I think that one's an intriguing option, but I don't know if Russell Wilson would be clamoring to go to Tampa Bay. Then it becomes more intriguing with a guy like Deshaun Watson, who, I think he's, this is somebody who needs to get the legal aspect closed and put to bed. And I think that's what everybody wants. The Texans want that. Deshaun Watson wants that. I think even his accusers want that as well, so that you can have some clarity moving forward. But I think Deshaun Watson, who's not quite as picky about where he could go, would absolutely be interested in this idea to go back to Tampa Bay, ready-made roster, been a winning organization the last couple of years. And I don't think he would mind at all stepping in to fill the shoes of Tom Brady. So I think they're probably a team that is most likely to make a splash in the market of going out and making a move, because that's a franchise that it's a fair weather city. They like their Bucs when they're good, and they got a little bit of taste of what it feels like to have a city behind them. I don't think they want to lose that enthusiasm and lose some of that, a momentum that they got as an organization behind Tom Brady. So I think they'll be very likely to be more aggressive and go after a big name, splashy quarterback.
So, Danny, where does that leave the Texans, who still have Deshaun Watson on their roster potentially as trade bait? And Davis Mills performed pretty well as a rookie.
Yeah, he was okay. The third-round pick, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, which isn't bad. I mean, it was, a lot for a rookie. I think he showed flashes. But I don't think they're, and as far as it goes with Deshaun Watson, you've got to close that door. I think everyone wants to know what the future holds. Everyone kind of took their stands. The Texans wouldn't deal him, but now they want to move off of him, and they have an incredible amount of incentive to do so. Nick Caserio also hinted at, hey, maybe there's a quarterback that we draft to come compete with Davis Mills. Now, I don't think they do that at 3, but I think they would be more likely to try to trade back if you find someone that falls in love with one of the pass rushers or offensive linemen in that 3rd selection. If they could trade back, then I don't think it's too wild to assume that maybe they would take a quarterback later in the 1st round, which is where I think any one of these top quarterbacks, whether it was Kenny Pickett, whether it was Matt Corral, somebody like that would make more sense in the teens as opposed to number 3. So many intriguing question marks that hopefully we're going to get answers for. What's going to be a wild offseason as far as the quarterback carousel goes, because the free agent market's out there. It's not great. You've got quarterbacks that want out of potential markets, and you got a lot of question marks for other ones where they've got quarterbacks retiring. It's going to be a fascinating quarterback carousel this offseason.
Yeah, and the Texans notwithstanding, there are a lot of teams with quarterback questions that are in the position to win right now if they get the guy. I mean, the 49ers almost made the Super Bowl again with Jimmy Garoppolo. Brady, it looks like they're going to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you feel Trey Lance is ready to step in as a starter week 1?
No, I don't. And that's one of the reasons why you've got Jimmy G under contract for another year. And I don't know that the team's necessarily come out and said anything definitive, but Jimmy G has. It almost seems like he wants to be somewhere else where he'll be appreciated and he'll be brought on to give a chance to go play, instead of always having to look over his shoulder and worry about when they're going to yank him out and put in Trey Lance. So it seems like that ship has sailed, at least in the mind of Jimmy G. We'll see what the team ends up saying, but this is one of those scenarios where when we look at the market, because the free agent class of quarterbacks isn't that great, you then look at the quarterbacks who are under contract that might want to be somewhere else. Jimmy G is not necessarily at the top of the list, but he's definitely not at the bottom of the list. I mean, when he's healthy, he plays good football. And you'd have to think a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers we just talked about, the Washington Commanders, the Indianapolis Colts, depending on what they do with Carson Wentz. There's a number of teams that I think they'd feel like it's probably an upgrade when you look at what he's been able to do when he's healthy. Even the Tennessee Titans or the Denver Broncos, if they lose out on the sweepstakes to get some of the other guys we've talked about, a la Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. So, look, the bottom line is the 49ers feel like they're going to have to move on in that direction with Trey Lance, because they've already made that move in the draft. And at this point, you got to get what you can back for moving up to take Trey Lance. start him and move on from Jimmy Garoppolo, especially if the player's already telling you this is how he feels. I don't know if that really sounds like a great quarterback room going into 2022, regardless of what both players have said publicly about how they've handled the situation. It just seems a little bit awkward. So it's most likely Trey Lance time moving forward, and we'll see where Jimmy G ends up.
Brady Quinn, Danny Kanell on the quarterback questions in this NFL offseason as the window for tagging players opens up today. Pick Six podcast with Will Brinson is where it's at. Recording a new one each and every day. The latest episode from yesterday focusing on Ryan Wilson's mock draft and also the odds to go #1 overall. It is wide open, as wide open as it's been in a long time.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.